Hey guys, Veebat here with another V Plays, taking a look at the Ki-43-II Hayabusa Tier 5. So I talked about this with the Hayabusa Ki-43 TAC 1 version 1, which is the exact same aircraft, just one tier below, right? And I wasn't really looking forward to this aircraft. This aircraft does get a second option of another 20mm cannon setup. So I have opted to go with the 20mm cannons here opposed to the 50 cal machine guns, which I went for on the predecessor to this airframe, and they work out all right. Like I said during the previous video with the tier 4 airframe, it's really dealer's choice. Do you want the 50s? Do you want the 20s? Depends on how you're going to play the aircraft. I opted for the 20s since the boost in damage for the third upgrade of the guns on this aircraft were worth it in my opinion, rather than running which would be with what would have been the stock 50 cal machine guns. So it was nice to run the 20s, get a little bit more range, allowed me to engage earlier, but I did have to be very wary about bursting the cannons. I feel like these took longer to overheat than the 20s that I had on the predecessor to this aircraft, so it worked out pretty well. Being able to cripple airframes made it even more, added more insult to injury when it came to getting into a turning engagement, because if I can take out some of your control surfaces, you're going to be in a tough spot. Again, the guns overheating here really did me wrong trying to finish off that one airframe. It would have flipped the capture zone, so with an aircraft on my tail, I had to go for the 180 spin in order to get that one aircraft off my tail. And like we saw with the previous aircraft, this is going to be very much a turn and burn fighter, so you're going to be at lower altitudes doing a lot of nimble turning engagements. Now, I will say that I wasn't expecting the altitude performance of another 1,000 feet, give or take, to actually mean that much in this airframe, but it really did. Being able to get up to about 3,000 feet was enough of a change that made it feel like this aircraft could operate a little bit better when it came to getting outside of its comfort zone and engaging those higher altitude aircraft without running into engine power issues and stalling out. Be aware that this aircraft is fully upgraded with the best engine, the best guns, the best airframe, so I do have a little bit of an edge here when it comes to some of the stock bots that are flying around here. And this is the from the opening cutscene here, we were able to make that running pass and have enough maneuverability to flip the aircraft around, and we are well outside of our envelope of flight operations, but we did okay and we're maintaining speed. With the upgraded engine, this aircraft is able to boost up to 300 miles an hour, which is pretty significant at Tier 5, and allows us to be able to really put the hurt on the enemy early. With the 20mm being able to fire this far out, it allowed me to be able to get the engagement started early and start putting the damage on the enemy. We are getting into a bit of a nasty fight here, but I feel like my maneuverability is going to allow me to be able to try and get out of some of these engagements and keep the advantage up. I'm looking for targets, I'm using my maneuverability as a strength. I managed to take out an aircraft earlier, which meant there was one less gun engaging me, and again you can see we're operating excuse me, nearly at 5,000 feet, and we're doing just fine. Here's the other player, Tora12. Tora12, I've played with him a few different times. Very polite player and very skilled player, so it was definitely a joy getting to see him in the match again, because I knew that we'd have a relatively close fight. He was trying to use his airspeed to outpace me, but my aircraft is relatively speedy with some boost, and I was surprised at how well I was able to stay on him, and if it wasn't for the 20s, I wouldn't have been able to snipe those shots out at further range. But it looks like a bot took advantage of my weak positioning and eliminated me, but it was okay for my end because I was able to flip the zone. And now we're going to start over at the airfield since there are aircraft trying to flip this capture zone, and I would like to halt their progress, and it's some free kills for me. A lot of the fights that I'm in are going to be playing specifically to the role of the airframe. This airframe likes to pick a capture zone, it's going to flip that capture zone, and then it is going to defend it until there's no enemies left, and then you will move back to the more aggressive stance, which for me is going to be in the center of the battlefield. You can see here utilizing my boost, kind of tap boosting, letting it cool off, and then heat the engines back up. It's allowing me to stay at around 280 miles an hour, which is going to let me get back into the fight that much quicker. So I was impressed with how much better this airframe actually got. So I'm gonna have to put my foot in my mouth here that I am enjoying this aircraft. I'm glad that I'm almost done with it. The aircraft is fully upgraded, so I just got a little bit left to go on it. But once I finish with this, then we get to the Hine Ki-43-II, which gets a significant boost in altitude performance. I think it's up to about 5,000 feet. And you also get 4 guns instead of just 2 synchronized cannons, which means you're going to get a little bit of a damage augmentation, which is going to make it that much more competitive. But I think it's at the sacrifice of some of your maneuverability. Man, putting all those words in my mouth at the same time. I should really slow down and take a breath. So this is a close fight. We are maintaining the advantage when it comes to the multiplier. We're at 3 times multiplier right now for controlling 3 of the zones compared to their ×2 multipliers. So even if I trade my life with one other aircraft, it's still an advantage. Taurus seems to be target fixated. He's doing the same type of tactic where he's trying to get some distance from me, so that way it's harder for me to engage him. My guns are overheating, but I have an aircraft on my tail. That's what happens when you go in a straight line. I don't know if Tora was planning on that, but there's the Tomahawk, which is essentially going to be the, I believe it's the Chinese premium version of his P-40. And I'm going to try and engage this aircraft at range. It's making this 0 pull off of my ally, which gave him a little bit more time. I see the Tomahawk and the P-40 are coming back in on my aircraft. I see Tora, I'm getting the guns on, I try to turn, and we ram each other. Now, this is important. We may have traded our aircraft for one another, and we both died, but I had the ×3 multiplier while he only had the ×2, so that actually worked out in my advantage. Now, for him, he may have seen it being a worthy sacrifice that it kept me off the battlefield because I was doing some serious work over there, but at the same time, it didn't really affect the capture zone because we both died. He gained capture points and I gained capture points equally, which meant that it really didn't move in any particular direction, so it's totally up to random chance now as to whether or not the bots can flip that center zone. Utilizing our boost, we're going to try to get back into the capture zone. Maybe this was part of his plan. He knew my aircraft was slower. His P-40 is a relatively quick airframe, so he's going to be able to get back into that zone theoretically before I will, but with my ability to do this alternating boost tactic, I am able to maintain a decent speed and get myself back into the fight with a reasonable amount of time, but it looks like we're starting to lose this stronghold in the center, which is not the situation I wanted to be in. The 2 20mm cannons are more than enough to be able to cripple, damage, and eliminate other light fighters, especially other turn-and-burns that are co-altitude with you, operating at that 3,000 feet and below. But when you start going up against heavies, the only real chance you have is if they're already taking some heavy damage. And you can see there that was a near miss because he was going to try and ram me because he knew he was going to be able to take me out and survive. And it looks like Taurus' tactic did work. They managed to get this stronghold. We're now at a disadvantage for the multiplier on the points, but we do have the points advantage right now. Tora is engaging in a turning fight with me, which I am going to win. I think he realizes this and decides that he's going to pull away from the fight, but I managed to cripple his tail, which means that he no longer has maneuverability to get away from my ally, and it looks like my bot is peppering him away. I was able to get the last few shots in to eliminate that aircraft as a target. The only aircraft near me right now is going to be this Ju-87. I just want to get some capture points rolling. We only need 7 kills right now in order to finish the match. This aircraft is at low health. I figure I can take him out and make sure that we maintain this zone because a ground attacker left uncontested is going to be a massive problem. We see a multitude of aircraft coming into the zone. We're kind of alternating our boost a little bit to try and get some altitude as well as airspeed. This Tomahawk looks like he's going to make a diving pass at me. You need to make sure you do a maneuver like this. You essentially eliminate his chances to shoot you, and now I can turn back around, and while he's trying to come back to re-engage, I'm able to get my 20s on target. I have to avoid my ally. Whew, that was close. We did nick each other, but it wasn't too bad. And now I've got a P-38F diving on me. We essentially do the exact same maneuver to avoid his head-on attack, and then we turn it around to try and get our guns on target, but he is just too fast from that diving run. But being a bot, he is going to make some turns. However, he is making turns away from me, which makes this a very difficult endeavor. And like I said before, we are below on the multiplier, and it looks like Tora is doing work as he just took out one of my MiG-3, and now I'm trying to chase down a P-38 at 4,000 feet. That's never going to happen. So I'm going to work my way back towards the center, where we're going to see a lot more targets and a lot more opportunities for us to be able to get the advantage. We see this Spitfire coming in. We're going to have to do the same type of maneuver to get away from him. And I see another target of opportunity. If you keep switching targets like this, it's going to make it more difficult for the enemy to get you, and it's going to make it higher probability of your allies being able to eliminate an already weakened target. Oh, there goes my airspeed stalling out. We are at 6,000 feet. This is not where we're meant to be, but we're so close right now. We only need 2 aircraft to take the win. We just got Winged Legend right there. There is a 0 low health. Those things are a lot easier to take out, but we traded our lives. Tora, close. You almost got me there. And we managed to get grade 1 fighter. Let's hit the end result screen and see how we did. Okay, fine. You guys win. The Japanese fighters aren't that bad. So I've shown you guys 2 videos of the Hayabusa. Hayabusa 1, Hayabusa 2 being the Ki-43s, and this time we were running the 20s opposed to the 50 cal machine guns that we ran on its predecessor. I'd say comparable results depending on the situation. It was nice to be able to get those long range kind of sniping shots, and the thing performed surprisingly well at higher altitudes despite losing a lot of the engine power, but with the relative nimbleness of the fighter, it did all right. We only had one instance where we were kind of stalling out, but yeah, we did pretty well considering this is non-premium time. I'm off of premium time right now, so we're at 6,200 base aircraft experience, or excuse me, 6,200 aircraft experience with a ×2, which means it was 3,100 experience non-premium with 80,000 credits income. So decent fight, decent rewards, and we also managed to kill 18 aircraft, and running with the cannons allowed us to be able to get quite a few critical damage into quite a few of the different aircraft. We only had one ramming incident. Tora really wanted a piece of my aircraft, and I wanted to kill him as well, so we traded our lives for one another, which really just ended up with me getting an extra point since we had more of the capture zones at that point. So I don't know if that was just vengeance or a lack of ability to turn at the last second there, but we definitely had a worlds collide moment. You can tell the difference of Tora did a very good job of killing a lot of aircraft, killed 12 different aircraft. He also managed to get a bit of capture points, and he achieved Winged Legend on his side of the map. And considering that I get a 1,000-point boost when it comes to winning the battle, we essentially had the same score. But why did I have grade 1 fighter compared to him only having a grade 4? The reason being is that most of my kills were over the capture zone, so that's where you see that major change. So destroyed while defending 2, meanwhile when you look at mine, destroyed while defending 5, that kind of tips the scale as well. So just to give you an idea, and we also have more capture points because of that defensive nature in which we were playing. So just another highlight as to where you can kind of bump yourself over that margin by just maintaining your role in your particular airframe. And with all things considered, this is almost exactly the same as the Hayabusa 1. The way it performs, the cannon placement, you only have 2. They're going to be synchronized on top of the cowling here, and that's pretty much it. I went with the same build, engine tuning, lightweight airframe, control surface adjustment because it is a maneuverable fighter. And we'll see where it goes from here. I can tell you that the altitude performance, while I thought was going to be relatively limited when it came to the Japanese fighter, actually outperforms that of the Yak-1M, which is a tier 6 Russian low altitude brawling fighter with about, what was it, 3K? Yeah, 3,200 compared to the Yak-1M, which, ooh, I guess the Yak-1M is also 32. 100, but this is at tier 6, so just to give you an idea of the difference in capability. And then when we get to the Hein, you'll see that the altitude performance bumps up to 5,000, so it'll be significantly better tier for tier when you compare the Japanese line to the Russian turn and burn fighters. So we do have a bit of a disparity here, and it looks like as we continue up this line, it only gets better with time, going all the way up to 6,000, then 7,000, and then it drops back down when you get up to tier 9, oddly enough. But yeah, going through the KI series, you'll find that you get continually better altitude performance, as well as better guns. So life does get better in this line, and I'm looking forward to getting out of the Hayabusas and getting into something that has some more consistent damage output, opposed to just being really an anti-fighter role. It would actually have the capability to put some hurt on the heavy as well as the ground attackers, which is what's going to be flying around down below you. So that pretty much wraps it up for this airframe. And post down in the comments what you liked, what you didn't like, and we will be catching you guys on the next one.